Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Today, let's talk about the 10-hour work week and how you can create the 10-hour work week and actually get stuff done and be more productive and have a lot of fun doing it. So I brought on Neill Williams, and she is a master certified life and time coach and the host of the Unbusy Your Life podcast and the creator of the 10K in 10 Hours Mastermind. So she obviously knows her stuff, and we're going to dive right in to help you save time and make more money. So let's get to it. Hey, Neill, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rachel. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So let's dive in. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah. So I am a master certified coach through the Life Coach School, deep dive certified coach through Bev Aaron's coaching school. And I am in the time management space. I help other coaches who are busy doing all the things in their life, build their businesses in about 10 hours per week.
I love that. How'd you get into that?
Like many entrepreneurs, it was my story, right? I was touched and changed by coaching, and I knew it was something I wanted to do in the world, but I was in the corporate world and I was the breadwinner in my family. So I didn't have the option of just like leaving my day job and going to do this entrepreneur thing. So I had to figure out how to do it in just a few hours per week so I could still be a mom and still sleep and still do all the things. So I figured out how to do it in about 10 hours per week. And now that's what I help other coaches do as well.
Amazing. So what is an unbusy entrepreneur and how do we become one?
A magic question, right? I think it's a little bit different definition for everybody. I now teach the 10-hour work week, which for many people seems like, how is that even possible? But I think it is deciding for yourself, what is that work week? And not only what is the number of hours in it, but what am I doing inside of those hours? Because we as humans are really good about filling up our time with a bunch of just things and just like
bunch of junk.
yeah, just to do things.
Yep.
So I think actually this is why I think it's so effective to have a smaller work week, because when you do that, you increase your capacity and you kind of have to let some of that junk, the busy work, go.
Yep.
And so in my mind, it's just one way to scale yourself and grow yourself is to have a tighter time frame around your work week.
I love that. So 10 hours, what do you do in those 10 hours? What does that look like?
It's different for everybody. And I work with coaches, primarily online educators, experts doing online business. So depending on whether they are delivering their programs in a one-on-one format or a small group format or large group, which is like a course, and I think you do both of these, your work week, like what you do in those 10 hours looks a little bit different. So you're going to have basically two categories of your time. So you'll have the time that you're being like the employee in your business, delivering, doing the work. And then you're going to have time where you're being the entrepreneur in your business. And I think even understanding that there are those two different types of time inside of your 10 hours is really important. And then the ratios look a little bit different. So the ratios that I've learned that work best, if you're one-on-one, if you're doing that kind of format, having about 6 to 7 coaching hours per week, and then about 3 hours doing the entrepreneuring work. And then if you're doing a small group, it goes to about 50-50, those ratios. Half the time you're marketing and doing entrepreneurial work and half the time you're delivering, doing your coaching. And then when you go to a large group model, it flips. So you spend more of your time doing the entrepreneuring and the marketing and all of that because you have more people. And then you're spending just a couple of hours per week doing the coaching, fulfilling the employee stuff. So it completely depends on where someone is in their business and what model they're using to build their business.
Cool. So when it comes to us becoming more productive, what are some of the strategies that we can use to be more productive?
Yeah. My number one favorite is to plan ahead of time. So when you plan, like, let's say you're doing a 10-hour work week, when you plan out what it is you're completing inside of that 10 hours, what you're creating inside of that 10 hours, before you get to executing and like doing the work, you're using a higher quality of your part of your brain when you're making those decisions ahead of time versus just like what many of us are taught to do is to sit down in front of our desk and be like, what should I work on today? And then if you ask yourself that question, notice what happens in your brain. Your brain goes like in a million different directions.
Yep.
It's so challenging to like rein that back in and just make a decision and go. So if you make those decisions ahead of time, you plan out your work week ahead of time, you know exactly what you're doing. It makes it just easier when you sit down to your desk. You're like, okay, I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't have to think about it ahead of time to figure out what I'm doing. I've already done that thought process before. And now I'm just executing on those decisions I pre-made.
Awesome. Okay. So one of the strategies, just do it ahead of time.
Yep. Plan ahead of time.
Do you have any tools that help you be more productive?
I mean that, and then the thing that I like to do is a brain dump. And what all that means is like, get out of your brain at least once per week all the things that you think you need to do or get done, because your brain is like collecting all of that kind of as you go through your week. So if you dump it out at least once per week, it opens up your brain to be able to work in a higher capacity way. And then you also kind of like look at that list, and I like to call it a done list instead of a to-do list, because I feel like if we're talking about to-dos, we're constantly in the busy of doing. But a done list is a little bit different because you're focusing your brain on what you're going to complete, not what you're working on, but what you're going to complete. So I like those lists, and then taking that list, that brain dump, and then transferring everything into my calendar, whether it's this week or whether it's the following week or it's next month or whatever. Then my brain kind of like settles down, is like, okay, I don't have to worry about that thing that's like in the back of my brain. And keep thinking about, I need to do. I've already planned for it. I can just let that go.
Yep.
And then it frees you up to be just focusing on what it is that's in front of you.
Got it. Cool. Do we need any mindset shifts to be more productive?
Yes.
What does that look like?
Yeah, I think, it's different for everybody, but definitely the one thing that I see so many people struggle with the most is that time somehow is associated with money and success. So if I just work more, if I just work harder, if I just put in a few more hours, then somehow that extra time is magically going to create this level of success that I can't create if I don't have that extra time. And I think that is the trap that a lot of people get into. And it makes sense, right? Because there is that model of success in the world, and it's the one we hear a lot about. Just work harder, just do more. And so but it only works for a certain level, right? Like you've probably experienced this in your business. You have like this amazing story about how you made $1 million in like no time. But if you had used the model of like, okay, I'm working 40 hours per week is what I need to create 200,000, let's say, then to get to $1 million would be almost impossible if you're using time as the way to get there. So it can work for a while, but ends up being like this big limiter for your success in your business, because there isn't more time to pull from for you to create that additional level of success.
Right.
So I like to just train people from the beginning that it's not time that matters. It's what you're creating. What are you getting done? What results you're creating in your business in the time you decide to work, which is a very different thing. Then you can you can scale what you're getting done, but you're not using time as the thing.
I've always hated the 40-hour work week, because I remember having like an internship when I was getting my master's, and I'd be there for, all day, and I'd get everything done in the first like 3 hours, but I'd still have to stay there I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is torturous. So it's kind of like, it's almost like a game for me now of like, how can I cut my hours back even more and still increase the business?
Yeah, I love that so much. And that mindset is the thing that will allow you to do that, right?
Yeah.
I was in the corporate world for a long time too. And it was like, we called it butts, like hours with that your butt was in the seat. Like that's what mattered. I was just like you. I was very highly efficient, highly productive. And so I would get so much done.
Yeah.
And then I would just want to be like, listen, my work's done. Peace out. Like,
can I go home now? I'm done. I did everything you wanted me to do. Why do I have to stay with like butt and seat where it hurts? Like my back would hurt by the end of the day because you have to be there all day long. And I'm just like, oh, that was torture for me of just being like told what to do, sit in the, oh my gosh.
I know. Right. And unfortunately, it is that kind of model that breeds so much inefficiency and so much
Totally.
lack of productivity. There's no reason for someone to be doing something more innovatively, faster, more productively, if all you care about is how long they're sitting in the seat,
Right.
if
Yeah,
that's where the focus is.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think in the entrepreneurial world, especially if we came from the corporate world and that's what we were trained as what was important, it kind of just like for many people, just slides over into their entrepreneurial day to day. And so sometimes it is like that training is a detriment to us as entrepreneurs, and we have to shift out of that mindset.
Totally.
Um, in order to create whatever level of success that you want that doesn't like ruin your life
For
because
sure.
you're working too much.
For
Yeah.
sure. What I've actually seen is, someone who has a full-time job and they're doing their business on the side, when they are able to quit the full-time job and do their business full-time, they have too much time and their productivity tanks because they have way too much time and they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. So they just overthink, perfect everything, like we manufacture ways
Right.
to fill up our time. It's really wild when you sit down and you kind of like see it in action.
Yeah. So what are some of the core things? Like we got 10 hours. What are the core things we want to make sure we schedule? And what are some things that we want to make sure don't get on the schedule?
Yeah. So I think I like to think about it in two ways. Like as entrepreneurs, we're responsible for a couple different things in our business. We're responsible for getting things done, which that done list is a really great way to like look at what are the things that I want to complete and really training yourself to think about accomplishment and completion versus just working on something. So I'm not going to work on an email. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write and schedule an email. That those differences are really important because you want each one of your hours to have like a job that it's completed. And so focusing that way. And then when we're thinking about results are very different. Results are the entrepreneuring piece of the work that we do. So it is, depending on how you're building your business, it's did I create email leads this week? Did I get people to sign up for a sales call or a webinar? Did I have what were my open rates on my emails? What are my click-through rates? Like thinking about the machine of your business and the results you want to create inside of that machine, and really like setting targets for yourself. Like, okay, I love 30-day goals because they're like long enough you can try some things, but then they're short enough where it's like, okay, that's over. And now I can choose a new goal if I want to. But thinking about okay, over the next 30 days, what are the results I want to create in my business? Maybe I want to sell 5 spots of my mastermind. Maybe I want to create, I want 100 people to sign up for my webinar, whatever it is. But focusing that on results, and then the other piece is more the employee, like getting things done. I think it even categorizing that piece for yourself in your brain, that they're two very different things. And as an entrepreneur, you're responsible for results, and as an employee, you're responsible for getting things done, is super important and makes it easier actually for you to look at your time and what you're doing.
I just love the way you said, I'm not sitting down to work on writing an email. I'm sitting here to actually write and schedule an email. Yeah. So having just that completion mentality of I'm sitting down, getting the task done, then I'm moving on.
Totally. One way that we keep ourselves in the busy, unreally knowing, right, is we're just always working on something. I'm going to work on this project. And so for anybody who's listening, who's thinking about how do you do this with projects that aren't going to get done? And when you sit down for 1 hour to do work, you want to think about in this 1 hour, what part of this project am I completing? So we're creating a course right now. So when I sit down for an hour, I might say, okay, I'm writing the sales copy for the sales page of the course. That's what's going to be completed. I'm not going to have the entire thing, but I'm breaking it down into chunks. And I'm thinking about what am I getting done of this whole big project in this amount of time.
Got it. Do you have any tools that you use that help you be more productive? I know one of the things I use is Brain FM. Have you heard of that app? I love it. And so that's what gets me in the zone of okay, I have an hour, I got to get this done. So it's just let's go. So do you have anything like that you use?
I really like I have a couple of things that are outside of myself. I like to listen to high energy music. It's one thing that really gets me. So I'm a fan of Spotify and creating playlists and all of that. But for me, it's more of creating internal energy and me thinking about putting my mind in the right place and creating the energy for myself that's going to keep me moving forward and focused and determined in the day ahead. So I don't have any like, do I have like apps and things that I use? Not really. I'm pretty like minimalistic in terms of that. I just use very simple, easy tools. I use my Google Calendar. I use pen and paper for my downloads. And then I really think about what I want to focus my brain on. And then I keep myself focused. So the one thing I don't do is I have some rules for myself, like some boundaries. Like if I want to go check Instagram, I can, but I'm going to complete this first instead of
game.
Yeah. So it's not that I'm withholding it for myself, but it is like, okay, but I got to get this done first and then I'll go do that thing.
Yep.
Because we're humans and it's easy for us to distract. And as entrepreneurs, it's not like somebody's looking over our shoulder and we don't have like that external accountability that maybe you had like in a corporate job or something. Yep. And so we have to create ways of having our own internal accountability in a role like this because we don't have that externally. So I would even offer like thinking about things that you want to set up for yourself as far as like rules or just ways that you operate once you're in like doing the work of your business. So how you want to handle distractions, whether you want to let yourself do that or not. I have a lot of clients who do allow themselves to do that, which is totally fine. But they're like, I get 5 minutes and then I got to get back into what I'm doing. Great. Just a matter of figuring out what is the rule for you. The other rule that I love that I have set for myself, and I feel like this has created a lot of success for me, at least because I'm working in such limited amounts of time, is I execute on what I told myself I was going to do. So I just follow through on what I said I was going to do almost without fail. Now there's some exceptions because I'm a mom and like life happens, but I don't let excuses like, I don't feel like it, I'm just too tired, this is too hard, things like that mean that I don't follow through on the plan that I already created for myself. So becoming the person, the woman, the man, the entrepreneur who does what he or she says, I think is one of those kind of power skills that will propel us forward.
How do you develop that if you're someone who has not followed through in the past?
Yeah, it's a matter of like every single day, like thinking about, okay, today I told myself I was going to do this and I'm going to follow through on this. And each one of those little decisions adds up and snowballs. It's challenging at the beginning. It's the most challenging at the beginning, unfortunately, which is why a lot of people don't, create that skill that for themselves. But if you work through the challenging part, it's easier on the back end. Like this is one of the skills that I taught myself when I was in my corporate job. So when I came into the entrepreneurial world, I already had that seated for myself. And I don't even I kind of see my brain telling me like, we should go do other things. Like it's beautiful out. We should go for a walk, but I don't engage with it because I haven't made it a negotiable with myself to do that, which is the difference.
Yeah. Don't negotiate with yourself.
Yeah, because you know how your brain will be like, it'll give you all the amazing stories why you should go do something else.
Totally. But it's like, I'll do that fun thing after I complete this one task. Then it's like the reward of getting to do the fun thing.
Yeah. Which makes the fun thing even more fun because then you have a sense of accomplishment and you feel proud of yourself. You're like, I killed this. And now I get to go do this fun thing.
Yeah. I love it. So what are like 1 to 2 action steps that someone can take after listening to you today of like this, like the 1 to 2 things that you can do immediately to start just seeing more productivity?
Yeah, I would say it's what we kind of talked about earlier today, which is planning ahead of time. So important to have set yourself up and your schedule up so that you're not wasting time or energy trying to figure out what you're going to do when you sit down to do it. I think we waste a lot of probably for some people, it's up to an hour trying to figure out what it is they're going to do in their workday before they even get to work.
Right.
So I think it's a matter of that. And then it is practicing the skill of following through on the plan that you made for yourself and not making it negotiable, not engaging in the chatter that's happening in your brain about how you could go do something else, because of course you could, but really thinking about, okay, if I'm going to do that, I want to think about tomorrow me and how she's going to feel about me not following through on this, or next week me. who, that future version of me is going to pay the price for this decision if I make that, and making it consciously. We're not saying that we don't ever do that, but we're very conscious of doing so and liking our reason for it.
Yeah. Do you ever see people kind of setting themselves up to fail where they put way too much on their plate that they can't So how would you talk to that person who it's like, they obviously cannot follow through on it because they give themselves way too much to do?
Right. That's so true. It's either like someone gives themselves way too much time and then they're like just filling up the time, or they go the other way where they just, their expectations are like, don't meet them where they are in terms of their capacity. So there's no way they could have fulfill on that. So it's important to know, like, we as humans are not good in estimating our time. We're just not. And so the way that I like to learn how I operate and where my capacity is like, I will, like, let's say we're writing an email. Okay. And so I like to think about what are all the steps that I'm going to take to write that email and schedule it. And I will list these out. Now, at the beginning, this is like a painful, tedious process, but it gives you such a good sense of, oh, actually, I can't get an email done in 30 minutes. It's going to take me an hour. So you list out all the steps of everything that you're going to need to do. So I'm going to write a headline, and then I'm going to write the 3 main points, and then I'm going to have the call to action. And then I'm going to proofread it and edit it. And then I'm going to schedule it, right? So maybe there's 5 steps. And for each one of those steps, you want to think about asking yourself, how much time do I want to give myself to get this done? So writing a headline might be like 15 minutes. I'm going to give myself 15 minutes to come up with a really amazing headline. And then for writing the 3 points, maybe I give myself 20 minutes to do that. And you do that for each one of them. And then you look at how much time that all adds up to for all the steps. And for many people, they're like shocked at like what that time actually is compared to what they thought they could execute on. So that's a great place to start. And it doesn't mean that you don't eventually like tighten up those timeframes, but being generous with yourself when you're first learning how to do this and really like seeing the math behind the time can be so helpful.
Got it. Awesome. Well, what's one of the best books you've read?
Oh my gosh. I read so many books. I read about a book a week.
Wow.
The one that I think had the most, like, I'm still like grappling with some of the ideas in it kind of book, kind of like a deep one, is The Last Word on Power by Tracy Goss. So this one is about how to reinvent yourself and the mindset shifts behind not just the idea of improving something, but like radically creating something new. And so it's kind of interesting. It will probably, if you read it, you would look at things a little bit differently. And one of the reasons why I read it is because I went on this, my goal for this year was 50 fails. So I'm going to fail basically once per week, because I keep hearing this idea, like if you fail a lot, you're going to be more successful in your business. So I'm like testing that idea out. And so she talks a lot about failure as the road to success inside that book. So if anybody is interested in that, I think would be a great read.
How have you failed? Can you share with us some of them?
Massively. In all the ways, right? So I basically recreated my business. I kind of shut down all the offers, everything I was doing prior to this year. In January, I started brand new. So I started a brand new email list. I started a brand new niche, created a brand new offer for that niche, just to see, like, is my process of building business in 10 hours per week, if I did it again on my business, could I do it? And I did, but it took a lot of failure, right? It took a lot of like, oh, this lead magnet isn't working. I could try this. Oh, this email, nobody's clicking on it. They obviously hate the headline. I'm going to try this. It's like every single week looking at something like that. Oh, nobody is signing up for this sales call. That wonder why. Or they came to this sales call and nobody's buying this. Why is that? All of those pieces of business, like being willing to like try, experiment. Every experiment in my mind is a failure, because unless you get what you want, but failure to me is trying something and then not getting what you expected. And that is like what entrepreneurship is.
I'm like, I do that all the time.
All the time, right? Every day. You're like, I'm going to try this. Oh, that didn't work.
Nope.
Or it does, which is amazing. But if you think about the ones that do compared to all the numbers of things that you try,
yeah,
so many, right? The
right.
proportion is so small of what actually like we find like, oh, I finally figured out how to get people on this call. Yeah. So many things. So right now, my big fail that I'm working through is webinars and how to do a webinar that feels really good to me, but also does a really good job of conversions.
Ooh, I can give you some feedback. We have $1 million plus
I will
webinar,
take
so
it.
I can help you.
I will take it. You know, there's all these skills as entrepreneurs we're like expected to know, like how to write great copy and how to write headlines. And like, there's so many things. So I think it's just a matter of like picking one thing, like trying 15 different ways of doing it or different things until you figure out like, oh, that actually worked. Yep. Okay. Now the next thing. Yeah. So I've just done that over and over and over in my business. Like I've been very unattached to the results and more committed to trying things. And it's doubled my business. So
that's really the mindset you need to have. Just be completely unattached to the results. Because a lot of times, like we think we are our business, we are our results, when no, you're not. Like you are you and you have a business, and in the business you're going to fail and you're going to try a whole bunch of things, and that's how you grow and learn and become successful ultimately.
Totally. But when we grow up in this environment of like failure is this big, horrible, ugly thing, and it means a lot about us, like think about our school system and what we train our kids. Yeah. And then we try and take that into entrepreneurship, and it doesn't work because they're different systems. They're not built like successes doesn't come out of those systems in the same way. Yep. So it's a matter of like training yourself to not make it mean anything about you, that you fail. And once you can get there, it's so much easier to just keep testing and trying and testing and trying. And that is the thing that makes you successful.
Totally. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
For me, it is I've decided my whole mission for my business is that no coach is left behind. I really believe more coaches out into the world means more opportunity for healing. And I think we're in a space in our world right now where there's so much healing that needs to happen. So my way of like impacting that is getting more coaches out into the world, even those who only have 10 hours a week to do their business. It doesn't matter to me if they can get out into the world and help the people that they need to be helping.
I love it. Where can we connect with you?
So you can connect with me on my website at www.neillwilliams.com, or I have my own podcast. It's called Unbusy Your Life. And you can listen to that anywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neill, for being on the show.
Thanks, Rachel.